Alright, so listen very closely. When you tell me what you want, do not try to tell me the means necessary to get it, because neither you nor I know them. If you try to tell me how your desire is going to be fulfilled, I must first rub you that thought out before I can replace it with what you want to be. I will explain what that means in a second, so please stay with me. Don't click off this video just because you thought this is like a shiny object. No, we have to dive deep and really understand what is going on, so please stay with me. Man insists in talking about his problems. He seems to enjoy recounting them and cannot believe that all he needs to do is state his desire clearly. If you believe that imagination creates reality, you will never allow yourself to dwell on your problems, for you will realize that as you do, perpetuate them all the more, and they will perpetuate in your life, right? When you dwell on your problems, you'll perpetuate them. But in this quote, there is a lot of wisdom, and I want to break it down for you so that you have something practical for you to do, okay? So let's just start together and let's just break it down. Because I also notice this happens to me a lot when I work with someone. People sometimes like to give like a long explanation on why something cannot be, or on this is probably what is going to happen, or this first needs to be solved, this first needs to happen so that I can eventually end up with my desire, right? But Neville brought it really good to the point here, because he said when someone told him what he wants, right, it's irrelevant, it's unnecessary, and coming up by yourself with the means that you think it's going to take to express that state, right? Because you don't know these means. Neville does not know these means. I do not know these ways and these means, right? We can't say them, but we think that it's important for us to project in front of us. Oh yeah, that's probably how it's going to happen. That's how it's going to happen. Oh, what about this? What if I encounter this? Maybe that's not going to happen because this already happened. And then we lose us in the rational thinking that can never really understand how we can go to the end state, right? If you try to tell me how your desire is going to be fulfilled, I must first rub that thought out, right? Neville rubs that thought because it is so irrelevant. And that thought should be replaced by dwelling in the end again, right? The answer to basically 99.9 of questions. Of course, there are a lot of nuances, and every situation is unique, and every use case, what would I recommend here is maybe something different that I would recommend here. So depending on how long you are on this journey, depending on how much you've manifested, there's always something specific I would recommend to you, and I would help you on your current level. So again, if you need help for that, I do have a program. But the key is not to, again, project any potential ways in front of us, because we don't know these ways, right? And then another thing that people do is people like to talk about their problems. And I have this also in my family. There are people, and maybe you know this, they like to talk about problems. They like to talk about things and why things cannot change, and that things are not good right now, and that things are stuck right now, and that this is happening, this is going on, right? People seem to enjoy recounting that. And people do not believe that if they would just state their desire clearly and decide what they want and go in that direction, and not be lured in by what the senses are trying to convince them of again, and they stay with the desire, that is enough, right? That wanting is enough. That sometimes we don't even have to do a technique. And Neville said this as well. He sometimes had, from the beginning on, when he desired something, he knew it's going to happen. So if we are already convinced, we don't need to do more techniques to convince us. But if we are not convinced yet, and we're doubt, then clearly stating the desire and imagining that we are already having it is enough. But that is what most people can't believe, because they are not testing it, they're not applying it, they're not practicing it, they are too lazy at it, they're alone, they have no like-minded people. Everything that I saw from the program. I know this sounds right now like a big marketing video, but it's the truth. So if you believe that imagining creates reality, you will never allow yourself to dwell on your problems, right? Because if you dwell on your problems, you will get more of them, right? If you realize that you will perpetuate them, right? Because what you imagine, what you focus on, what you give your awareness to, your energy, your light to, you get more of that. So that's when people who always, recount their problems, who always dwell on their problems and say, oh, this happened, and that is shitty, and that is not good, and that, look at their lives. Usually that is a pattern. Usually they encounter that again after a week. usually they're stuck again after a month, right? There's not much changing because they stay in the cycle. But if you understand that imagining creates reality, right? That imagining means moving within. Imagining means placing your awareness on something that's unseen yet. Imagining means occupying a state that right now is not visible, right? And if you know that this creates your outside experience by first shifting within and then seeing it outside, then why would you ever dwell on problems, right? And why would you ever wonder about how it's going to play out, right? We can't determine the means. We can't determine the how. My ways are higher than yours. That's what basically the Bible said. That's what consciousness is saying, right? That's what imagination is saying. My ways. It's not the rational mind's ways. They're very limited. But my ways are past finding out. We can't find them out. This is beyond mind. We can't go there rationally. We can't grasp that rationally. But we can prove it. One proof is climbing a ladder in imagination and seeing that we will also climb a ladder on the outside. There are other experiments, right? You can smell a rose, you can hold a tennis ball in your hand and imagine all of that, and then you will encounter this on the outside. So you see this deep connection between where you moved within, and then it also happened without, also for very specific things, right? So the key is always that we give ourselves the wish fulfilled, and that we imagine something that implies that we already have achieved the goal, right? This is Neville's core way of shifting, and whatever that scene implies, that state is then activated, and then that state is mirrored back on the screen of space in our outside circumstances, right? But do not walk around and think this is going to play out, this is how it's going to play out, this is what's going to happen. Who cares? It's irrelevant, right? I mean, it's interesting maybe a little bit, but it's completely unnecessary to do, because you won't really know it. It will probably happen in a completely different way. And I notice this every time when I thought, okay, I want this, I imagined it, then a new opportunity came, or I changed my mind and suddenly have done something that I never thought I would do, and that helped me ended up with my desire. So never try to devise the means, devise the way, let that happen from your higher self, but you should focus on going into the end state within. In my free masterclass, by the way, I summarize all of that and I tell you how to go to the end, mistakes that people do, learning, success stories, how to really shift into this version of yourself that has already achieved the goal. So you can check out the free masterclass. And there will be also a new version of this masterclass. There's my program if you want accountability, if you want coaching, if you want a structured system and a high-level community of really committed people. And if that's too much of a commitment, but you still want to benefit from a community, you still want to benefit from a mini version of my program and from my members' unreleased success stories and interviews that I interviewed them on, then check out my inner circle. You'll find that on my website, upgradeyourlife.com. You'll find my inner circle. It's only $50, and there you will find a lot of value for you to be able to do these inner shifts, right? But the key here is simply that you want to replace that thought of how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, right? Because you can only wonder how, when, what does it need for it to play out. You can only wonder that when you're still in the state of desiring and thinking from the state of desiring, oh, I desire this, so how is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? What does need to happen in between so that I get there? If you replace doing that with putting yourself inwardly in the achieved goal, seeing the world from that position, seeing the world through the lens of the version of you that has already achieved the goal, imagining yourself in that position, anchoring yourself in that, right? Dwelling there, feeling yourself into that, awakening the mood, what would it be like if I would have achieved it, then you are now on this new level of consciousness, right? You are where you have already achieved the goal, and then you can no longer think about how, when, what, who. These are all thoughts that will disappear when you stay in the wish fulfilled, right? In the wish fulfilled, the desire dies. So a good indication that you have shifted also is when your desire is simply dying, because you can no longer desire something that you already are. So replace all of those worries on how, when, who, what, with again realigning to the end state, noticing it, having self-observation, being in the observer perspective, catching yourself when you fall in negative states, and then bringing yourself back into the desire state. And stop, dwelling on your problems, because that will make them bigger, that will make them stay. If you continue to react, you will reenact the same circumstances over and over again. So we have to let the world be and make the inner shift, right? And if you need any help with that, check out my YouTube channel, all the resources that I talked about. Leave me your feedback in the comments and your questions and your video suggestions. I always like to read that, guys. See you in the next one. Bye.